Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are getting into the really fascinating logic behind the Indian law of evidence. Basically, it's the system that decides what actually counts as proof in a court of law. And I promise you, it's a lot more exciting than it sounds.
Okay, let's just jump right in with a scenario. Imagine this. You are accused of a crime, but you know you're innocent. Why? Because you were miles away when it all went down. So, the big question is, how in the world do you prove that to a court? This isn't just some abstract legal puzzle. It's a question of proof that could affect anyone.
Well, the answer comes down to one of the most powerful tools in any defense case, the alibi. Now, you've probably seen this thrown around in a million movies and TV shows, right? But how does it actually work when it really counts?
It's actually pretty simple. The word alibi comes straight from Latin, and it literally means elsewhere. In legal terms, an alibi is a fact that is just completely inconsistent with the accusation. Think about it. If you were somewhere else, you couldn't possibly have been at the crime scene. It's a fact so relevant that it makes the whole accusation fall apart.
You might recognize this classic line from the movie Drishyam. It translates to, "Yesterday, Vijay and his family went to Panjim for a prayer meeting." The entire movie, the whole plot, is about the main character, Vijay, building this incredibly detailed alibi for his family. He doesn't just say they were somewhere else, he builds an entire fortress of proof around that single claim.
So, how did he pull it off? And more importantly, how does this work in the real world? Well, first, you have to lock down the exact timeline of the crime. Then, you start gathering physical proof. Things like movie tickets, restaurant receipts, ATM withdrawals, anything that puts you in a different place at that exact time. And finally, you back it all up with witnesses, people who can say, yes, they were here with me. Every single piece makes that alibi stronger and stronger.
All right, let's switch gears for a second. We've been talking about criminal law, where the big question is who did it. But in civil law, the focus is often totally different. It's not about guilt, it's about money. How much is a loss actually worth?
So picture a lawsuit. Someone claims he completely destroyed my brand new, top-of-the-line smartphone. But what if that's not the whole story? What if the phone was actually a decade old and was pretty much on its last legs anyway? This is where one simple fact can change everything.
So, I have a question for you. Do you think this new information, the real age and condition of the phone, makes any difference in how much money should be paid out? The answer seems obvious, right? But the legal reason behind it is what's really important here. If you only listen to the first claim, the one about the brand new phone, a court might look at a compensation figure like this, maybe 80,000 rupees. And based on that information alone, that seems pretty fair. But then, a single new fact emerges, and it changes the entire equation.
And boom, here's the reality. The actual value of that old beat-up phone is closer to 2,000 rupees. See that? That one little fact, the phone's real age, completely flipped the financial outcome. In legal speak, the age of the phone just became what's called a relevant fact.
And this is all backed up by the law. Under the Sakshya Adhiniyam, any fact that helps a court figure out the correct amount of damages is considered relevant evidence. The whole point is fairness, to compensate for what was actually lost, not for some exaggerated version of it.
Okay, so now let's zoom out even further. What happens when a legal fight isn't about something that just happened, but about a right that's existed for hundreds of years? How does the law handle proof that stretches way, way back in time?
Think about this for a second. How would a family prove that they have a traditional right to fish in a certain lake, a right that's been passed down from their great-great-grandparents? You can't just whip out a receipt from last week. You literally have to bring history itself into the courtroom.
So how do you do that? How do you make history your evidence? Well, relevant facts could be anything from an ancient deed given to an ancestor showing how the right was first created. Or it could be records showing that the right was mortgaged, which proves it was treated like a valuable asset. Even old complaints from neighbors who tried to stop them from fishing can become evidence, because that shows the right was being used and also being challenged. Every single time that right was created, changed, used, or even argued over, it becomes another piece of this historical puzzle.
So, we've looked at a criminal alibi, a broken phone, and an ancient fishing right. On the surface, they seem like they have nothing in common. But they are all connected by one single, incredibly powerful idea. Let's put the pieces together and look at the big picture here.
The first thing you need to get is that the law of evidence is not just some random list of rules that lawyers have to memorize. No way. There's a very clear, very consistent logic that runs through the entire thing, and it's all designed to do one main job.
This table really sums it all up perfectly. In a criminal case, the key question is, were you there? So your location, your alibi, becomes the most relevant fact. In a civil case about damages, the question is how much money is owed, and so the item's true value becomes relevant. And for a historical right, the question is, does this right even exist? And suddenly, what your ancestors did hundreds of years ago becomes relevant. You see? In every single case, the law zeroes in on the facts that logically connect to the main question being asked.
When you boil it all down, the entire system is built on this foundation of logic and fairness. It's designed to cut through all the noise and distractions and focus only on what is truly logically relevant. This makes sure that court decisions are based on a solid chain of proven facts, not on guesswork or emotion.
And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. What small, seemingly unimportant detail in your life right now, a forgotten receipt in your wallet, an old photo on your phone, a casual email you sent years ago, what if that could one day become the single most crucial piece of evidence in a court of law? If there's one thing the logic of evidence teaches us, it's that sometimes the smallest facts can make the biggest difference.